Tempers are flaring between the Philippines and China. This week, a tense diplomatic standoff made headlines across Asia. The issue? China's threat to pull investments and jobs, which seemed like an attempt to sway Manila's policies. Yet, the Philippines did not back down. Instead, officials responded robustly, rejecting what they called economic intimidation. The diplomatic dust-up unfolded after Chinese officials hinted at potential job losses for Filipinos if relations took a nosedive. The warning coincided with heightened tensions in the South China Sea, where both countries assert competing claims. News channels buzzed, and social media in the Philippines exploded with hashtags like Pilipinas Laban. Behind the scenes, government officials scrambled to coordinate their responses. The stakes were high. The Philippines faces economic headwinds, but sovereignty issues strike a deep chord in national identity. The government's reply set the tone for a new chapter in its relationship with Beijing. Now, both countries are recalibrating strategies. The world is watching, and the outcome will shape the region's future balance of power. China's warning was blunt. In a press briefing, a Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson cautioned that if relations soured, thousands of Filipino jobs could be at risk. The statement referenced Chinese investments in business process outsourcing, gaming, and infrastructure. The message was clear. Economic ties could be weaponized. The warning came amid mounting confrontations at sea. Was this a genuine concern, or a political move meant to sway Manila? Philippine officials insisted national interest would not be compromised by economic threats. The South China Sea dispute is decades old. China claims much of the sea, citing its so-called nine-dash line. The Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and others challenge these claims, pointing to international law. In 2016, an international tribunal ruled in favor of the Philippines. China, however, rejected the ruling. Maritime incidents have become frequent. Filipino fishermen report harassment near Scarborough Shoal. Coast Guard vessels from both countries engage in tense standoffs. These confrontations have fueled anti-China sentiment in the Philippines. At the same time, both nations maintain robust economic links. China is one of the Philippines' top trading partners. Bilateral trade reached $38.3 billion in 2023. Chinese investments have flowed into energy, infrastructure, and tourism. However, these economic ties have not erased underlying mistrust. The maritime dispute remains front and center in public consciousness. Amid these realities, the latest warning from China brings the economic and security dimensions into sharp focus. The Philippines is being asked to choose between its territorial rights and economic opportunities. The Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs was quick to respond. In a televised statement, Foreign Secretary Enrique Manalo declared, "The Philippines will never barter its sovereignty for economic favors. Our people's rights and dignity are not for sale." This message was echoed by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., who emphasized a rules-based approach to foreign policy. China's foreign ministry, meanwhile, doubled down on its message. In a written statement, it urged the Philippines to cherish the hard-won friendship and cooperation between the two nations. Chinese officials reiterated the mutual benefits of stable ties and warned of unavoidable consequences if relations soured. Public briefings in both capitals reflected the seriousness of the moment. Philippine officials stressed their readiness to weather any storm. Chinese diplomats, for their part, framed their warning as a reminder rather than a direct threat, but the undertone was clear. Economic pain could follow diplomatic defiance. Analysts noted the unusually sharp language from both sides. The exchange highlighted a widening gap, not just in policy, but in perception and trust. Diplomacy is a game of leverage. China's warning about job losses fits a broader pattern. The country has used economic pressure in past disputes, including trade restrictions and investment slowdowns. For Beijing, wielding its economic clout is a way to shape regional behavior without direct conflict. Yet this tactic can backfire. In the Philippines, public reaction was swift. Many saw China's message as bullying. Political analysts noted that the warning could rally Filipinos around their government. Economic threats evoke memories of colonial-era pressure, making them especially unpopular. The Philippine government seized the moment. Officials highlighted efforts to diversify economic partners and reduce reliance on China. They pointed to new trade deals with Japan, South Korea, and the United States. The message was clear. The country is not without options. Public perception is now a key battleground. Manila's strong response has boosted its image at home. For China, the risk is that heavy-handed tactics may erode goodwill and push neighbors closer to rivals. Supporters of the Philippine government praised its response. Social media lit up with messages of national pride. Opinion leaders argued that standing up to China was essential, even if it meant short-term economic pain. "Our sovereignty is not for sale," wrote one columnist. "We have survived before, and will do so again." Critics, however, voiced concern about potential economic fallout. Business groups warned that jobs could be lost if Chinese investors withdrew. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce called for calm, urging both sides to find common ground. Some workers in the gaming and construction sectors expressed anxiety over their livelihoods. Academics offered a more nuanced view. They noted that while economic diversification is important, it cannot happen overnight. The Philippines still depends on Chinese tourists, investors, and trade. A sudden rupture could have real costs for vulnerable sectors. Debate raged on talk shows and in newsrooms. Was the government's hard line wise or risky? The answer may depend on how long the standoff lasts and whether new opportunities can offset losses. Data from the Philippine Statistics Authority shows China is the country's largest trading partner. In 2023, exports to China reached nearly $12 billion, while imports stood at about $27 billion. Chinese investments, especially in infrastructure, have created thousands of jobs. Analysts warn a sudden pullout could disrupt growth, but the economy is more diversified now. Japan, the US, and South Korea are increasing their presence. The key is managing the transition and building resilience. The Philippines is not alone in facing Chinese pressure. Across Southeast Asia, smaller nations are navigating a complex web of economic ties and territorial disputes. Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia have all clashed with China over the South China Sea. Each has responded differently, but all share concerns about Beijing's growing assertiveness. The United States is a key player. In recent years, US-Philippines defense ties have deepened. Joint patrols in the South China Sea have increased. The Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement allows U.S. troops greater access to Philippine bases. American officials have publicly supported Manila's stance, promising ironclad defense commitments. ASEAN, the regional bloc, remains divided. Some members urge dialogue, while others back a tougher approach. The Philippines is pushing for a stronger ASEAN code of conduct in the South China Sea, though progress is slow. China's economic threats are being closely watched. The outcome may influence how other countries balance sovereignty and prosperity. For Manila, the challenge is to assert its rights without isolating itself from key markets and partners. The diplomatic standoff has lasting implications. In the short term, economic jitters may affect investment and job creation. Businesses are monitoring the situation, hoping for a de-escalation. The risk of a trade slowdown is real, but so is the possibility of new partnerships filling the gap. For the Philippines, standing up to China could boost its international image. The government's firm stance is popular at home and may attract support from allies, but the economic risks cannot be ignored. The transition to new markets will take time, and some sectors will feel the pinch. China, too, faces choices. Escalating the dispute could alienate not only the Philippines but other Southeast Asian nations. Beijing must balance its strategic ambitions with the need to maintain stable economic relations in the region. The road ahead is uncertain. Much will depend on continued diplomacy, regional cooperation, and the ability of both nations to separate economic cooperation from territorial disputes. The latest spat between the Philippines and China is about more than jobs or investments. It is a test of sovereignty, national pride, and the limits of economic leverage. Manila's refusal to bow to intimidation has set a new tone in the relationship, but risks remain. Both nations have much to gain from stable ties. Yet, as long as maritime disputes persist, tension is likely to flare. The Philippines is betting on resilience and diversification. China, meanwhile, must decide how far it is willing to go in pressing its claims. For now, the world is watching. The outcome will not only affect the Philippines and China, but could reshape the balance of power in Southeast Asia. The hope is that both sides will find a way to protect their interests without further escalation. Only time will tell if economic threats give way to meaningful dialogue, or if the standoff hardens into a new normal in the region.